In a world where imprisonment turns into a horrifying reality, there exist prisons where overcrowding reaches critical limits. This is not just statistics on paper, but real zones where prison walls groan under the weight of their own saturated population. Haiti's prisons are considered the most overcrowded in the world, exceeding capacity by over 454%. Additionally, the prison in the Philippines is not just full. Here, people sleep standing or take turns. Have you heard about the toughest prison in South America? A facility built for 2,500 inmates houses around 7,000 people. There will be much more about life and death, human rights violations, and inhumane conditions of confinement. Let's plunge into the darkness of the world's most overcrowded prisons and try to unravel this grim paradox of justice. Watch and be amazed. First, I want to tell you about the horrendous prison in Kenya, known for its harsh inmate conditions. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, located in Roysambu County, is widely recognized as one of the most severe places. It was built by British colonizers in 1954 under the old colonial system to detain criminals during a state of emergency. Inside Kamiti, the original gallows still exist, although the last execution took place in 1987. The prison is notorious for overcrowding, and its conditions are unnatural. The official capacity is 1,200 people, but in reality, it houses between 1,800 and 2,500 inmates. Diseases such as HIV, AIDS, gonorrhea, syphilis, tuberculosis, and dysentery are widespread among the prisoners. Kamiti has always been known for holding political prisoners and executions by hanging. However, its scandalous reputation increased in 2008 when a riot, triggered by the discovery of contraband, was captured on a mobile phone and televised. The prison complex also made headlines in 2021 when 3 terrorism suspects escaped. Later, 7 guards were arrested for aiding in their escape, and the prison chief was dismissed. Now, let me tell you about the ominous Black Beach Island, located in Equatorial Guinea, which has long served as a place of punishment, synonymous with humiliation and suffering. This prison, well known for its constant human rights violations, has gained a grim reputation for cruelty, inadequate nutrition, overcrowding, and unfavorable coexistence with rodents. Deprived of freedom and protection, prisoners lived in fear and suffered deadly illnesses. Black Beach, located on the volcanic island of Bioko, became a place of disappearance for many convicts. Although the old and ominous structures of Black Beach have been replaced, and the prison now has a hospital wing and a pharmacy, inmates still spend up to 12 hours in shackles every day. In 2008, a UN Special Rapporteur expressed concern about the use of torture and physical violence in Equatorial Guinea. Black Beach was mentioned as a place where prisoners endured prolonged beatings, and political prisoners were kept in isolation for several years. Black Beach is known for its lack of respect for human rights and insufficient protection for prisoners. They are denied the opportunity to communicate with the outside world, as access to lawyers and family visits is extremely limited. And now I invite you to focus your attention on San Juan de Lurigancho prison in Peru. It is often called the most severe in South America. This facility, built for 2,500 inmates, currently houses around 7,000 people. However, inside the prison walls, things seem surprisingly calm. It is believed that banned mobile phones are rented out, and inmates establish businesses on the internal market of Lurigancho, trading everything from fruits and vegetables to drugs and DVDs. Cockfights take place in the prison, and prostitutes, referred to as nurses by inmates, are also regular visitors. One inmate described these women as a social service, stating that without them, there would be an explosion in the prison. Inmates are not segregated by the type of crime, and they are allowed to move freely throughout the facility. Unsurprisingly, there have been cases of violence and even murder in the prison, including an incident with a Dutch inmate who killed his Peruvian girlfriend and buried her beneath his cell. It is worth noting that government control seems ineffective. Although in 1986, during riots in Lurigancho and other prisons in Peru, authorities reacted brutally, killing around 90 Lurigancho inmates. Another one of the most overcrowded prisons in the world is considered to be Comayagua prison in Honduras. Currently, it houses over 3,500 inmates, even though its capacity is only 800 people. The conditions here are simply dreadful. Inmates are forced to sleep on the floor. Cells lack windows and toilets. The lack of hygiene and medical assistance leads to widespread illnesses and deaths among the inmates. According to official statistics, there are over 12,000 people in Honduran prisons, while their maximum capacity is limited limited to 8,000 spots. Cells are not divided into male and female, often resulting in cases of violence against women. The tragic fire in the prison located in the city of Comayagua started late in the evening on February 14, 2012. The flames could only be extinguished 3 hours later, but by that time, 5 prison blocks had completely burned down. Witnesses point out that the fire was started by one of the inmates. All attempts by rescuers to find keys were futile, and inmates in their cells perished in the fire. According to official data, 358 people died as a result of the largest prison fire in the last 100 years. Those who survived came under fire from prison guards. It is also known that firefighters were not allowed to start working for about half an hour due to gunshots heard on the prison grounds. The president of Honduras promised a thorough investigation into this tragedy and the punishment of those responsible. The prison and the management of correctional institutions in Honduras were temporarily relieved of their duties. Now, the next prison, Gitarama, is often referred to as Hell on Earth. Once, the Los Angeles Times wrote, "Today, there is no free space left in hell. The doomed have already taken it. They live, sleep, eat, rot, and die, squeezed 4 people per square meter in a brick box without a roof called Gitarama Prison." It's astonishingly reminiscent of a horror movie poster for George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. The prison was designed for 400 people, but after the genocide in Rwanda, the number of inmates grew to almost 7,000 by the mid-1990s. Prisoners were said to have been left to die and could wait for their trial in this purgatory for up to 16 years. It was even claimed that some desperate inmates resorted to cannibalism, eating each other. In extremely ascetic conditions, inmates stood together like a single organism under the sun and rain, choking on the smoke from the fires where they cooked, amid dysentery and despair. At some point, even without shoes that could protect them in such horrible conditions, prisoners often suffered from gangrene and rotting feet. Next, I want to tell you about Mendoza Prison in Argentina. In the global community, the institution is known as a place of horror, suffering, and inhumane torture. It is one of the most overcrowded in the country. The significant excess of the number of inmates leads to constant overcrowding. 1,600 convicts are in cells designed for only 600 people. 5 prisoners are forced to stay in chambers measuring only 43 square feet, and many are compelled to sleep on the floor without mattresses. In 2005, an international human rights organization reported harsh conditions in the prison, pointing out that prisoners had reached a point of desperation, literally sewing their mouths shut, demanding an improvement in living conditions. The conditions at that time included torture and even cases of death. From February 2004 to November 2005, 22 deaths were recorded in this correctional institution colony. Inmates did not receive proper medical intervention, and the prison sewage system was flawed, forcing inmates to use plastic bags and bottles as toilets. Even a simple hygienic procedure like taking a shower becomes impossible since the prison lacks proper facilities and inmates are forced to use a barrel placed in the corridor. In the women's section, where inmates live with their children, the situation is even more catastrophic. Due to the absence of basic hygiene conditions, human lives are at risk. Moreover, the prison lacks qualified medical staff. As one of the inmates expressed it, the only time they encounter medical personnel is at the moment of death. Let's return to Africa again. Nairobi Prison was built in 1911 and designed for 800 inmates, but by 2003, over 3,000 people were held there. Due to such extreme overcrowding, sanitary conditions and general hygiene seriously suffered. Officials do not even have enough uniforms for all inmates. Nairobi Prison, located in an industrial area, is often called the labyrinth of wire fences, barbed wire, and guard towers. It is considered one of the most overcrowded in the world. The cells reek of sweat, dirt, and human waste, and the air is filled with the unpleasant smell of untreated sewage. As noted by inmate Colin Alexander, "This is the worst prison I have seen. Everything here is bad, including the treatment by the guards. We have to survive by the grace of God. I doubt anyone can survive here." Many political dissidents are imprisoned within these walls. One threatening block G of this prison is considered the cruelest of all. Violent assaults and brutal beatings often occur here, and the conditions in which people are forced to live in this block lack any human dignity. The air in the cells is saturated with the smell of sweat and waste, and the stench of garbage continually poisons the atmosphere. Inmates are forced to carry buckets of water every day, as there is no reliable water supply, making it impossible to maintain basic hygiene. Surviving here is only possible with serious psychological disorders. The The next story is about a place of confinement known as Carandiru. This is a Brazilian prison, recognized as one of the largest prison complexes in South America. This ominous facility has gained a horrifying reputation, not only within Brazil. Those who have been to the hellish cauldron of Carandiru know the nightmares that unfolded there. Over 10,000 inmates formed their own, almost parallel world in this prison designed for 4,000 people. In 1992, the most blood-soaked prison uprising in modern Brazilian history occurred. The riot began after a fight between two inmates from rival factions and quickly escalated into mass disorder. Special forces stormed the prison, but the operation to suppress the riot turned into a bloody massacre lasting over 3 hours. Over 300 police officers were involved in this clash. In the end, 111 prisoners perished that day, with the majority being killed by the police. Why? Survivors spoke of cold-blooded shootings by armed police, even against those who offered no resistance. The investigation revealed that many inmates were shot in the back of the head right in their cells. Interestingly, during this bloody clash, not a single law enforcement officer was harmed, while around 90 detainees were injured. To conclude, my story will focus on La Sabaneta prison in Venezuela. It is infamous for its overcrowding and inhumane conditions. Considering that Venezuela ranks second in the world in terms of homicides, it's not surprising that Venezuelan prisons are considered among the cruelest. Almost 80% of Venezuela's prisons are actually under the control of armed inmates. In La Sabaneta itself, a prison designed to hold no more than 700 people, over 3,700 of the most dangerous criminals are packed. Inmates are often forced to share small cells, and the prison is infested with rats and other parasites. High levels of violence, frequent riots, and gang clashes characterize the conditions in La Sabaneta, considered extremely harsh. Some prisoners are compelled to sleep in hammocks stretched in narrow prison corridors. At the same time, the corruption of the system allows affluent inmates to secure more comfortable spots through bribes. There is only one guard for every 150 inmates in the prison. Riots are not uncommon here. This ongoing war between rival gangs has led to beheadings and gruesome dismemberment of several victims. As a result of a subsequent raid, a large supply of assault rifles and grenades was discovered, along with animals belonging to the leaders of the prison hierarchy, which were under the threat of disappearance. Unfortunately, these prisons are just a small part of those where inmates are forced to live in horrific conditions. But we must not forget that behind these walls are people who, like us, have the right to a dignified life. Some prisons provide educational opportunities for inmates to successfully reintegrate into society after release. However, most governments rarely allocate sufficient funds for the expansion of prison facilities. Despite established norms on inmate numbers, spaces in some prisons in certain countries are overcrowded. Nevertheless, I would like to believe that criminal punishment corresponds to the committed crime. After all, knowing that the worst criminals are behind bars, we all feel safe.